after the presentation of the State of the Nation address, the parliamentary debates began in earnest, and I had cause to contribute to the debate in my capacity as MP for the good people of the Abu-Asebu-Kwamankese constituency. I spoke about measures that were being taken by President Mahama to reduce non-essential government expenditure, and I highlighted the significant reduction in the size of government. No sooner had I finished than the MP for Damongo, the Honorable Samuel Abujinapo, take his turn, and in the process he made misleading claims regarding the size of this government. And it is important that I reiterate the true position in terms of the size of this government. But before I do that, in order not to waste the Energy Minister's time, I will invite him to the podium so that he gives you an overview, a brief overview of the state of the energy sector, after which I will continue with the briefing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Members of the press, let me thank all of you. As you may be aware, today we had a briefing to Cabinet, and we briefed Cabinet on the state of Ghana's energy sector. The energy sector we inherited is riddled with poor infrastructure, huge unsustainable and mounting debt. At the last reconciliation before Cabinet, the energy sector debt stands at over 80 billion cedis. ECG's receivable stands at only 8 billion. And so if ECG were to collect all their receivables, we'll still have a shortfall of more than 70 billion. But what is more worrying is that the debt keeps ballooning and increasing. The infrastructure, very, very poor. And what we used to call excess capacity now appears dwindled, and we have to start preparing to increase the capacity in order to meet the demand requirement. We require about $700 million worth of liquid fuel in order to fill the fuel deficit, because our gas today is inadequate to meet our fuel requirements. Consequently, Cabinet has approved a raft of measures aimed at tackling the situation in the medium, long, and even in the short term. Cabinet has approved that in partnership and in conjunction with the Finance Ministry, we take immediate steps to construct a second gas processing plant. This gas processing plant would augment the shortfall and increase supply security. Today, let me put on record that we are not shedding load. And so the demand by the minority and some people that we publish a load shedding timetable is mute. When you are not shedding load, there will be no need to publish a load shedding timetable. In fact, as we speak, we are exporting about 300 megawatts of power outside Ghana to Burkina Faso, to Benin, and to other neighboring countries. And so when you have enough and you are exporting power, obviously there will be no need to publish load shedding timetable. Admittedly, the system is very fragile and very weak, but we've been working around the clock to procure enough fuel and to make some payments to power suppliers in order to hold the system. It's true that Bridge Power, one of the independent power producers, shut their operations because of mounting liabilities that have not been paid over the months. But we've been able to negotiate with them, and I'm happy to announce to you that they are back online. It's also true that NGAS threatened to shut down the pipeline from the 6th of March. We've also been able to work with them and to negotiate with them. And gas supply has resumed and increasing from NGAS. What we need to do is to mobilize additional resources in order to procure more fuels and to hold the power sector running. Cabinet has also agreed that we operationalize the Renewable Energy Investment Fund, which will seek to deploy a lot of renewable energy, solar rooftops, EV charging stations, chargeable outboard motors, and more importantly, the deployment of solar street lights. which would press or suppress the peak demand, thereby making huge savings so that we can continue to produce power. We are also to implement a raft of measures to contain expenditure within the energy sector, both petroleum and power. Consequently, we will be directing all the agencies to halt all kinds of expenditures that are not critical. And even those that are critical, they would need to seek permission before they proceed. The sector is bleeding and something must be done in order to curtail the bleeding. This would demand some very, very tough but necessary decisions, and the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition is determined to implement these systems. At the downstream petroleum sector, Cabinet has agreed that we ought to construct a second mooring system in Tema, known as the CBM. We have only one CBM which is used to discharge both petrol and diesel. Demand has increased by 186% since 2006, and yet we depend on only one mooring system, leading to huge demurrage costs, leading to huge challenges and unreliable supply security. And so immediately, Cabinet has decided that we would construct the CBM. Whatever challenges that arise, both legal and financial, would engage all parties and address that. We'd also be constructing additional tankage in the west, that is around Takrady, so that we can have supply flexibility to serve the people of Ghana. Cabinet is also committed to ensuring that we involve private sector participation at the downstream distribution sector. Let me reiterate without equivocation that we have not taken a decision to sell ECG or NETCO. ECG is supposed to collect over 2 billion. They collect only 1.5 billion, leaving a deficit of 500 million cedis every month. That sums up to about 6 billion per annum. That cannot continue. Government must do something about it, and we are determined to do something about it in partnership with local content-led private sector participation. And we think that that is the right way to go about it. It will be done in a competitive, transparent process, giving priority to Ghanaian entrepreneurs and Ghanaian businesses. And we believe that that would help tame the situation. These are some of the measures that have been considered at Cabinet. Additional measures will be taken, and when those measures are taken, we'll be more than willing to brief you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. No questions. If you have any questions, please straightforward. Madam.
Okay, so let's take 3 questions quick, because the minister is rushing to another meeting. Otherwise, we answer one and then we move on. Thank you.
I know that the actual gas processing plant, when it was completed, was to produce about half of the gas that government will need to power the thermal plants. And that will automatically, or was expected to automatically reduce the import of light fuel to power the thermal plants. Now, what has happened to the actual gas processing plants? Need $700 million, to procure light crude fuel to power the thermal plant. Thank you.
Is that all the questions? So I just take them once.
Regarding the debt of ECG, what is government doing to address those debts, especially and the other SOEs?
Is that all? Then I want to take it once.
Okay, so mine has to do with the gas processing plant. Can you shed more light on the plant in terms of capacity, when it's expected to start the construction, and how much is involved in doing all this? Thank you.
Okay. So the Atobo gas processing plant can generate about 100 mm SCAF ENI can generate about 235 SCF, and then Nigerian gas can move up to about 100. But because of increased demand, you still have a shortfall of about 100 SCF. And so it's not as if all these plants are not producing. They are producing, but because demand is increasing, it means that consumption of supply is also increasing. And as you bring on more supply and thermal complementation, you will require some additional gas. And that is why there is that shortfall. So clearly, there is the need to immediately construct a second gas processing plant because we have stranded gas. Gas is much more cheaper than liquid fuel. If you use liquid fuel, it will cost you 3 times as compared to gas. And gas is more efficient, it generates better power, it promotes longevity of the plants, and it's much more reliable. And so that is why we are doing everything we can to achieve a gas to power era. In September, the ENI plant was shut down, which means that we'll be losing about 240 SCF of gas. If nothing is done, it can lead to a potentially 1,300 megawatts of a deficit in power generation. And so we are working around the clock to mitigate that impact. September is a major challenge for this country. It's so short. Energy sector investment takes a long time to come to fruition or realization. But we are still working around the clock. Just like we're able to hold the system in March when the West African gas pipeline was shut, we are working around the clock and we would brief everybody along the line. In terms of timelines, we are determined to work around 1 year, 6 or 8 months. Normally it takes more than 2 years, but we want to bridge the process and fast track it so that we can achieve full operation within the shortest possible time. Is there any other question? The what? The ECG debt. Yes, we've been discussing with Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance has made some provision in the budget to address some portion of the debt, but we'll continue to negotiate with all the agency and stakeholder players so that eventually we can deal with this debt. Thank you. God bless us.
All right. Thank you very much, Energy Minister, for that comprehensive presentation.